is officially 2 o'clock, so let's kick this off right on time and respect everybody's schedule for 1 hour for our planned webinar on the Geographic Roadway Inventory Tool, affectionately known as GRIT. And we have with us today Brad Wentz, the creator of GRIT and the brains behind the program with UGPTI. He's going to be presenting. We have Andrew Rookie with UGPTI and also with North Dakota LTAP. He's here to support Brad, and if we have any questions or comments, he'll jump in. My name is Dale Hegland. I'm lucky enough to be on the LTAP team and part of Upper Great Plains and get to help Brad, Andrew, a little bit as I can. And in the background, we've got Leanna, not on speaker, and both Andrew and Leanna are field outreach for the GRIT program. Please tap into Andrew and Leanna. They are awesome experts on GRIT and certainly have Brad's backing.
Well, today is an exciting day for us here as we are about to release the next version of GRIT, which will be called GRIT 2.0. The existing version was just GRIT 1.0, and this is it's kind of a major upgrade. And usually we'll do little updates and bug fixes, and you won't really know about it. It's just done on the web application. But this one is kind of a complete rewrite of the program, and it was done for a few reasons. Primarily to put it into a more modern programming language that allows us to make updates easier and to change the code. In the old one, if we had to make a simple little change to add a value or something, sometimes it would break other parts of the code since it was such a big application. This is a more streamlined version, and it's kind of a big improvement and a change, but the functionality is all pretty much the same. So today I plan to just kind of go through the actual application. I'm not going to talk about where GRIT came from or any of that like I have done in previous webinars, but really to just jump into the application and show where any of those changes were made and how the application works. We have people joining us from both North Dakota and Minnesota. Most people have some experience with GRIT and have used it, so they'll be able to follow along right in there. But there are a few that haven't used it before, and they're going to kind of use this as a little bit of a tutorial. So I'll walk through kind of all the layers, but not into any great detail. The other thing to mention is that it is being recorded. So, and I had to mention that to a lot of people on the email invite that because there are some other meetings going on and a lot of people aren't able to attend, but we'll be able to send this out right away. And we wanted to do this webinar prior to actually making the change and making the program live so that the next time you log in, you're not completely surprised by kind of a different interface. So we're going to do this webinar, and then over the next couple of days, we'll actually make the program live. So before I jump into it, I do want to recognize a couple people that have been working on it. And I'm right at the UGPTI homepage, and we're going to look into the DOT Support Center, which is a program that we have our IT section in that was used to develop this application. And so I'm going to look at that, the staff directory there, and we have actually two sections in the DOT Support Center. One's for design section, which has students working on civil engineering projects for the North Dakota DOT, but also we have an IT section and staff, and this is where all the magic happens here on this application and developing it. So Megan Bray is our IT section supervisor, and we have several students working under there, more at different times, but we have graduate students and undergraduate students. You can see them listed there. And I'll point out on the bottom is one of our graduate students, Santapab. We refer to him as Ruben. He was kind of the lead on the rewrite of this application, so he spent a lot of time in it and developing kind of the framework for this application to take place. And with any good program, we have students graduate and move on and get better jobs, which is kind of one of our goals. And so Ruben is no longer here, and he's been replaced already with Sarkar, he's another graduate student that is taking on where Ruben left off with the programming of the application. So they do a wonderful job here. Whatever I dream up, they can put that into code and develop it from scratch right in JavaScript or whatever programming language they're using. So thank you to them. And then I was going to also just mention in here on our grid homepage, which I'll jump to that. This is where most of your links are that you have already to this page where we have the help videos and then the launch into the grid program. And this is not going to change. You'll be able to just come here when we roll out the application. You'll hit the same link for the Geographic Roadway Inventory Tool, and that'll take you right into the new application. The grip map viewers will all be there. There might take a little bit of time to get those updated, as I have to go in through ESRI and update those viewers. And then we have a steering committee, which I wanted to mention also. So as we kind of had drafts of this application, or a good draft of it, we sent it out to the steering committee for them to provide some input and comments back. You can see here we have UGPTI representatives, some distinguished folks on there that are also on the call, and a North Dakota representative, North Dakota DOT, Brian Fuchs is on it, and Association of County Representatives, and then several county representatives that we've had from the beginning, and they did a nice job in providing us some feedback on things we might want to consider in the rewrite and to help us along to get to the point where we're at right now. So thank you to them. So I'm going to jump over here right into the, and this is a test version, and data has been imported from the actual live version, so we're able to look at the live data. You'll see that this kind of the opening screen is pretty similar to the other one. There's a view-only mode, and you can pick this, the state that you're working with, and then the county, and go in and view only on those for that county, or go into the editor mode, and you can log in with username and password. There's a help and a contact just like before. And then I've already logged into a county. It happens to be in Minnesota just because I live here and I'm pretty familiar with these roads, so nobody can trip me up with any questions about the roads when we see the data. And most of the data layers have been entered in for this county, so this is what I'm going to use to demonstrate and go through the application. So the opening screen that you come into is here, and you can see the looks of it. The interface is a little different, but the functions that were there before are still there now. There's a layers button right up front, the first one, the biggest one, because that's the main thing you're going to want to do when you come into this application. And from there you can pick one of the 4 layers. Those are all the same as before. And I think I'll just pick construction history to get started here. You can see once you pick that layer, it's showing all the start points of those construction history segments for this county. And then I'll run through the buttons a little bit. On the right there, there's a kind of a layer of buttons. These were spread out a little bit before in the old application. Now they're just kind of in one area. One thing is we can toggle background layers on and off, and we have background layers, some new ones added in that we didn't have before. We put a few of the data items in from each layer of data. So construction history has pavement age, surface type, total surface depth, surface age, and you turn those to turn them on, and it comes up on the map, and there's also a legend over here that's on representing the colors, so you can kind of see where those start and end points go and what kind of surface is there, and you can just turn those on and off as you want to look at the data. We'll be adding to that a little bit and changing that as we go along to make it make more sense. So there's one for construction planning, minor structures, and ownership load restrictions. So I'm going to just turn those off for now so it isn't cluttered up. And then we have a next button over is a ruler button. Before you used to have to do the long press on the map, and that would pop it up. Now you can just turn this ruler button on at any time, and then as you can see it says select a drag to measure, and you just drag that either of those points wherever you want to measure. And when you highlight it, it says to hide the ruler, and you can hide the ruler again. And then there's the help and the home button. The next button over is just a collapse button. So this map is, designed, our application is designed to run on any web browser, on your phone, tablet, or whatever. So sometimes if it's on a smaller screen, you're not going to see much of the map. You might not see any. So you want to be able to collapse this menu and see the whole map, see what's behind the menu if it's on a small screen. And then it goes back to an expand button that you can then open that back up again. So the other things are like they were before with zooming in, zooming out. There's a location, your location button here. There's street view. And so those things haven't changed. So I'm just going to zoom around here a little bit and zoom into an area. And then you can see it says we can select a new construction history item, or you can just select the pin from the map to view that. So we pick it, it highlights it and shows it in black, and then again pulls up all the data for that just as it did before with the 4 different tabs. One thing that's changed a little bit now is if you happen to pick a location that has more than one start point on it, it actually pops up, it's called the spider button, but it pops up two pins, and you just move your mouse over them or click on them and it'll show you where those are. It highlights it on the map where that project goes, and so when you get on the one you want, you just click the button and it starts it. So you don't have to have the pop-up window that you used to have there before. So it's a little easier to use in that fashion. So in the data, I think we'll look at editing some of the data just to see couple of the new features that are in here. There's a highway number in here, and I'm going to hit edit on it right away. The buttons to edit or cancel are down below, and save. You can see when we're in edit mode and we're editing until we actually change something, then the save button will become active. So the highway number is just going to be a four place number, and you can see that before you would get errors. Now you can just enter in the 4 numbers. If I keep trying to enter in more, it won't let you. But I can also put in letters. So if I got 21A as the highway number, in some cases, so you can use characters in those 4 digits. That highway number is intended to label on the viewers, to put it in a highway symbol shield, to label your data. So that's why it's limited to the 4 and to a highway number. There's also the segment description, where if you want to use a street name or some other description of it, you can type that in down below. The length is automatically calculated in miles. And then, so for start location, that looks a little bit different. One, there's a bubble to drop a pin where you want to change something, and there's also a input box. So if I click on that input box, it brings up a screen that you can cut or copy and paste right into this if you have your lat long from some other application or in a database or something that you want to manually put it in. You can just cut and paste it into here. But more than likely, you're going to be using the pin to drop it, and that's where you just click on the bubble. So let's just say we want to change the location of this begin point on this project I have selected. I'm going to hit the start point, and you're going to see some of the differences that we have here now. So first of all, let's get rid of this. There's the same crosshair that you used to have before, and you drag the map around like you did before and get it to where you want. And then rather than having to go back to the map again, you can just hit the drop button right here. This little green button would then drop the pin right there. And the other thing that's in here, a little different, you can see all the other begin and end points pop up once you once you hit it, and that's what was popping up on my screen. When I hover my mouse over it, I can snap right to that point directly. There's no long press or anything like that. It's just hit the snap button wherever you want to go. So if I wanted to move it up here, I just hit the snap button and it would snap it right to that location. Or down here, so I'll just hit snap and you can see it snapped it right to that same location as before. Put those coordinates in here. And then another way to do that is if we want to use the coordinates and you wanted to measure from an area, we can also do that. And let's turn on this satellite here just so you can see that. So again, there's the show ruler button up here. Again, it's different where there's no long press anymore. Long presses didn't work that great in a tablet environment, and that's why we kind of eliminated that portion. So I hit the ruler button, and again, I can drag these points around. And so if I wanted to be a certain distance from that intersection, say it was 1,000 feet, I just drag it up there. And then when I hit the start button, then these points are also snappable that I just put in. So, oops, zoom down. So I can go to that one and hit snap. And now my point is 999 feet from the intersection. So those were just a couple of the kind of the bigger changes in the functionality. A lot of the rest is going to be very similar to how it was done before. So, and everything was kind of done to make it kind of intuitive or better than it was before. So it's fairly intuitive. I can go back and turn that ruler off so I don't have to look at that. And again, segment descriptions are down here to type in what you want on that. And then waypoints, a couple of the data items that drop out to, are a little bigger, are folded up into these little triangles where when you click on it or click on the word, it drops down and you can see what's underneath it. So waypoints are folded up into one. You can add as many waypoints as you want. So if I want to just stick one in here, again, I just drag the mouse to where I want it to go and drop that pin there. And you can see that the closing of the menu happens automatically too, so you can see your whole map again on smaller devices. So you got to just expand that again. So you can see I have a new waypoint there. Again, I can add as many as I want. If I want to get rid of it, I just hit the X and it's gone. This last item is sometimes if there's no road there, like a new road, if there's no Google Maps road behind it, you won't have anything to follow. You can convert these points that you enter in the waypoints and the start locations to a polyline, and then it'll just draw a straight line in between them. So then we have that point or that segment edited like we want for the location start and end. Then we can jump over to the data items. I'm not going to talk in detail about these. A lot of them haven't changed, but we can just pick them. They're all in drop downs. But like I said before, sometimes this was hard to change in the old one, but now it'll be a little bit easier for us. If we do want to add a new project type, we can put that in here, make that available. The project surface, again, depending on what you pick, we'll pull up submenus. So right now it's on bituminous, and you can see there's a bituminous type where we can pick the different types of bituminous. But if I change this to gravel, then we have different types of gravel that we can pick, and so on with the other items on here, concrete and so on. So leave it on bituminous. Then project year you can type in. We did a little bit more on trying to pull up values so you don't have to type in. So we have down to the 1/4 inch for different lengths. But we really wanted to not have keyboards pop up, especially for the mobile devices. Just pick it from a list. So last project depth, total depth, cost per mile. And then there is a new one here, is comment box. We've tried to limit these, but we've added a few more in with kind of each of the layers so that if you have any special things happening out there with this segment of road, you can put that in here in the text box. Base, again, you can see there's some folded up menus here where before these were all expanded out. This gives us a little more real estate. So you just pick on the text and it drops down to the values for the top base. That's nothing has changed in there. You're putting in the type, the depth, and the year, and the top base treatment if there is any. And then if there is no bottom base, that's all you would put in is just the top base. But if you do a bottom base, you can open that one up and enter the information in. The fields there are the same as the other one. And then lastly is subgrade. And you can just scroll down for that. Subgrade strength. There is, we added it in here and I could see maybe it needs a little more of a label, but you can pick, if you're used to doing resilient modulus for your subgrade strength, you can put that in here and label it, or California bearing ratio, or soil factor, or R value. So you can pick whatever units you're using for your subgrade strength if you're putting one in. Oops. And then of course the year, if there was a subgrade improvement out there, the year that happened, and then any subgrade treatment, cement or fly ash or whatever else. So that's your base information. And then lastly is the cross section. We got nothing's really changed down here from what was before. Lane width, the number of lanes, right shoulder paved. One thing with the new format, we were able to not have to abbreviate stuff because we got more real estate to just type out what the field is. So, and then also we haven't added any of the help yet. We'll still be looking at doing that into the future if there's some areas where we actually need it. But hopefully with spelling it out, it makes it more understandable what to go in there. So you got grading year, then curbs and slope ratio, just like before, edge line treatment, center line treatment, median type, median width and right of way. And then the last one is the owner. So that was pretty much the same as what we had before. And I'm just going to cancel this so I don't save any of those changes that I made, because we're going to pick another one here. And let's just go with this one here. And so at the beginning there's the inventory, and that's what we went through. But there's also, when you click on this, an option for maintenance. And down the road here a little bit, we're working on a project with Minnesota Local Road Research Board where we'll be adding in performance, and that'll contain some of the pavement condition information and other items like that. But so for maintenance, then we can go in here, and this was in the program before, but it was a little bit harder to use in that program. This one does make it a little bit easier in that the same edit buttons and things work with this one as with the other one. So if I hit edit on this, I can go ahead and put in, if I got a crack sealing project that I did, I can put that in, just add new, add in the seal coat, chip seal, the year, the cost per mile, completed by, and then that'll stay in there. Let's just put one in, 6, and worry about that and hit save. So now I have 1 of 1 in here for this record, and so this lets you do the history again. At the end of the year, you're going to maybe want to come in and do your maintenance items, and you can put in whatever you did for that year, just the total over the year what you had done. So there's crack sealing, patching, and then the new one that we just added is striping. So this wasn't in the application before, and we had a few requests for it. So let's show you what that does. So I can put in where I'm doing maintenance of striping, when I'm striping, and what year it's done. So there's an option for center line, one for edge line. So let's go under center line. The information under each of those is the same, but it's split out by that. So we have where we can put in the type of striping that we're doing there in the center line. There's various different types of of striping materials that counties are using and states, and it will be nice to research those and be able to look back and see where are you using latex, where are you using epoxy, thermoplastic, and kind of see how those are performing. It's good research and tells you what you should maybe do in the future for these different types. Let's say latex, the width, we're experimenting with different widths for safety reasons, so you can put in that. The date pops up a calendar. And then contrast is something new that's been shown to be pretty effective, so it's happening in some places, and that's where you put down some black material underneath the striping so that it stands out better. And then we have striping schedule. So every so many years you're doing your striping. A lot of times it's on a 2-year cycle. Maybe it's on 4 or whatever. So that's the cycle for it. And then if there's rumble strips, the type, whether milled or rolled, and then if you're doing any maintenance on that rumble strip. So if you're sealing it or routing it or doing other work on it. So that's just the center line. There's also the edge line. Again, those are the same values for that. So this allows you to track the maintenance you're doing on it, and then kind of to see what that schedule is, so you can kind of plan out where you're doing the work and and how often you're striping those roads. So that, and if I want to take that and save it, I just hit the save button, and then that record is saved for striping for that year. So that's kind of it for the construction history and any new items on that. Again, there's a chat box there. If you happen to have a particular question or a comment or a suggestion or anything, just go ahead and type it in there on these things as I go through them. So I'm going to jump into the next layer, which is owner load limits. And I'll turn off back to map here. So again, you can see the start points for all the load limits. Again, do a new or pick an existing one. Draws it and zooms in. And then we have essentially the same location tab as for the other ones. Again, everything's the same as what I just went through. So that's the same. How you add them, how you modify them or edit them is all the same. So I won't really need to go through any of that. Again, with this one, ownership, that really hasn't changed. We still have some of this information here that kind of goes along with your load limit section. So your roadway type, you're going to have a different one for paved, for gravel, and different things. So this information is here. It's just kind of background overall on your roads. You can fill that out if you want. And then, of course, the load limits. Again, we have some roll-up menus on that. So seasonal, spring load restrictions. We have just the load limit, and then the gross weight that you can select for that for the seasonal limits. And then year-round, you're going to want to put those into what it is for the year-round restrictions on that. And that's really it here. There isn't much else to add. I guess there's a button here that I didn't mention in the last one down below here, and that's the copy attributes. So this used to have a couple options to copy. We just narrowed it down to just the one where basically we can just copy the attributes within one layer to another section of road. So if I'm on this one, I can just click the copy attributes button and then basically put in where I want those to be in a new section of road. So I would just hit it, if I wanted them to go over here, I could just snap to that one and hit the end point, and I'll just go here, just So now the same information that was on the last one is going to be on this one. I don't have to re-enter anything, and I could just hit save, and that would save that one there. That copy button is the same in all the different layers, so you can copy within the construction history and in the other ones. So, and I'm just going to cancel my edits because I don't want to keep those there. So that was load limits. That's pretty much the same as before. And minor structures, we have a couple new items in here that I'll show you. And I think we do have, Becker County didn't enter all their structures in, but there is one in here, so I can just use that one and pick it. So you can see up for structures under location, there's the center location, and that's going to be a required item that you have to have in. That's the black dot in the middle here. And then we also have the inlet location, the outlet location, along with elevation. Again, if you want to enter in manually, just hit the little pen there and you can cut and paste in the coordinates. But you got to remember they're in decimal degrees, geographic coordinates, so that's what you would be putting in. And then there's a little description down here. We put information in. The structure itself, these data items are pretty much the same. Again, we can spell out the words and stuff for the description, so it makes it a little easier. So, you know, the type of pipe, the material, span length, cell diameter. In this case, it is a pipe, so there's just a cell diameter. There's no width and height, and the length and number of cells. Same information as before. Year installed, depth of cover. And these you can enter in your decimals. If it's you know, 2.4 feet, you can put that right in. So everything's labeled there with the units. We have condition. We left these as before, where there's verbal rating for the different types, and then an overall structure verbal rating, and then the rating date. Signing. Now this is one a little different than we had before, and it's trying to match more what a lot of counties will have as far as restrictions on their structures, where some counties will list just the gross vehicle weight. Some counties will list the axle limit weight. Some signs out there will have both of them on there. And then some signs will be just for all configurations, for any truck that goes over it. And that's what's happening in this case. So the gross vehicle weight in this one for that structure is 80,000 pounds. If you click on that, you're picking from these predefined values, and we can add to this if there's some other ones that we're just trying to hit common even numbers, and we don't want people to type in here either. So we're picking from a list again, which is what we want to do. And then there's the axle limit, and that's in tons, which is kind of standard for the axle weight. So if this one's restricted down to a 4-ton, you can just put that in. And then there's cases where the sign will have for single unit trucks, for double unit, and longer than that, or multiple unit trucks. So you can put that information in if that's how you mark your bridges. But again, counties are different between states and even within the same state on how they're actually signing those restrictions on those bridges. And we wanted to capture that for everything. So we will, all of your data is converted from what you have into grit. And so if you had something in there on gross vehicle weight, it'll be under all configurations. So it'll come across just for the all configuration ones and for gross vehicle weight and axle limit. So that'll all be transferred, but now you'll have the opportunity to go back in, and if you want to get more detailed so you know what's out there on those signs and you know how that's being restricted, you can put that information in. And then bridge end markers are marked on here again with yes or no. That's it for structures. Everything is pretty much the same on the data items. as before, other than the last one, signing. So I will jump to the last one, which is construction planning, and zoom out a little bit. You can see we have pretty much their 5-year plan entered in here. And so I'll just pick one of those projects, and you can see, again, the location tab, everything's the same as all the other ones. We have then project info. These data items are also pretty well the same, where we can pick our surfacing type. One thing about it, there is some different types in here that are a little different than maybe was in there before, but in here we can put in, if we want to put in a safety project, or if we're doing one in the future, and we want a plan, we can put it in here, and that opens up a safety type, and where you can pick what type of a safety project that is. Rumble strips. And then you can put the project number in. That's open to any way you record a project number. They're kind of always different, so there's no restrictions on that. Plan year, project status. And this is one you want to keep up to date. If you're putting your projects in for this year or in the future, you want to always come in here and update this. So if it's just planned or planned with committed funding, or once it goes under construction, you want to update that. And when it's completed, you'll want to update that, because that's going to determine how things are shown on the web viewer maps. Then there's that status date. Again, those are just calendars that pop up, and bid opening date, estimated total cost, and then the final total cost. And then there is a field to enter in length if you don't want to just accept what it automatically calculates. And then the next one over, public impacts. Again, this is for the projects for this year. This is what it's going to be showing, but where you can put in the actual start date and the actual end dates. And public impact, again, the start and end dates, it's kind of meant to be when you actually start construction, and then as soon as it's done, you'll want to come in here and put the actual end date in. Public impact, so during that construction, what are the impacts? Road closed, reduced speeds. We added pilot cars. There's a project out there that has pilot car in one lane, so that's now an option to put on there. And we got width restrictions, impact notice date, and detour, same as before. And then there's the comments, and I think we had that before, but there's one there now, so you can, if there's special things happening out there with the construction, you can put in as much as you want in there on that. Finance, same before, but there are some roll-up menus on that, so you can, for the funding source one, you can pick that if that's federal. And the percentage, probably, and then you go to the next source if that's county, and 20. You can enter that in, and you can go up to 5 different sources that you can put in, which is going to be the percentage of that total project cost that you had in the other tab. So, and I think that's about it for that one also. Most of it in this one is the same as before. So that's our construction planning layer. And as a side note on this one, it is kind of more of an active one, where construction history, you get at the end of the year in December, you can put in all your, your work that you've done into the construction history. But construction planning, we got live web maps that are showing, if that road's closed or when it's open, so the public impacts. So this one's kind of important that you have somebody that's available, a technician or whoever that's able to hop in there and update this data as you go through the year of your construction, because that'll be on those public web maps, and it's good information for the public. We are going to be working with North Dakota DOT to show those web maps that are showing this data live, to try to get that in one way or another included in the 511 maps that are at the DOT, or at least a link in there, so public generally knows to go to that place when they're looking for road conditions or road construction and other things. So we want to be able to have them find these web maps that show this information. So it's going to, as we move along in the future here, it's going to be more and more important that the counties keep that layer up to date with the public impacts and project information. So I think that pretty much covers the 4 layers, and I think I've covered all the changes. Andrew, I don't know if you want to jump in if there's anything you see that I maybe should touch on a little bit. And then once I'm going to close here with just kind of talking about a few new features that we are considering that are kind of on our to-do list, but we just didn't get to those yet. So Andrew, you got anything?
No, Brad, I think you covered everything.
All right, and I don't see any questions or anything on the chat box. So one of the items there's a few items that were requested along the way, and we got it, like I said, on our to-do list. We're busy trying to get this out and make it available, so we're not to those yet. But one of the items is bridge photos. So in our layer for minor structures, we're looking at basically adding, it'd either be a tab or another place where we can attach photos of this culvert here. So when you're out there in the field, you'll be able to open this application, take a picture, and then have it automatically store it through the application. That would then be stored on our server here. So anytime you come into this structure, you'd also be able to click on the tab with the 1 or 2 or 3, maybe up to 5 photos of that structure and the culvert. So that was a request that came about when we were looking at another application that we've been working on, and I'll update you on that a little bit. And that was we have a roadway image capture application, runs on an Android phone right now, that we can drive along and capture images of the roadway, and then they automatically stored to our server, and then they can be viewed in our web viewer. So I'll hop over here to the North Dakota web viewer, and if you look under layers, I'll turn off this. There's one of the layers in here is the roadway image capture tool, and when you turn that on, it turns on surface type and then the roadway images, and I gotta zoom in here a little bit. So they're taking whatever the user sets it at every 500 feet. And so there's a point every 500 feet. When you click on it, it pulls up the image of the roadway, and that's all stored on our server. But right now, I guess just as a status on this, we're still testing it, and Andrew's been out running it and capturing images. But we have it available for the Android, and if there's any counties that want to test it out or use that, they could let us know. We actually send the application to them. It's not on the Play Store or anything right now, but it's available to use. If you have Android, you can do that. So you just let us know if you want to give that a try. But that'll just whatever road you drive and have that set up on, and you upload the images, they'll show up then on these viewers. And then we have a lot of people using iPhone, which surprises me, but we do not have an iPhone version of it yet. And we will be working on getting that converted over into an iPhone application sometime in the future. It's a little bit down our list of priorities right now, but we will be working on that. So, but if you want to try the Android, just give us a shout on that Android version of that. Back to some of the other enhancements that we've been talking about. I think I did mention it, and a big one on construction history here is where we're working with Minnesota, and we'll be adding a new option here for performance, where once all the data is entered in and we have some pavement condition data collected from either the pathway van or other, it'll predict the future condition of the road. So you can pick out 5 years from now and see a map of what the condition will look like of the road. So that'll all pertain, that new tab will pertain to all that information. So we'll need some traffic data, and we'll need some pavement condition data and some structural information. And so that's where that'll go. We did talk about adding an option to draw in detours. So in the construction planning layer, we have it on a list to look at where if there is a detour for this road, rather than right now where we just pick the detour length, where we'd actually have a button to draw in those detours so they'd show up on the map then with the road. So those are some of those updates are a ways out, but they're on a list somewhere. So I think we have a few others, and won't go into those right now. And as we work with the counties and the steering committee and others, as those things pop up, that's where they get added to, and then we'll try to prioritize and look at making those enhancements as we move along.
Brad, there's a question here about major structures, and wondering if those are going to be added by UGPTI staff, or is that something that would need to be entered by the county staff if wanted?
So major structures, so the layer that we have was really intended for minor structures. The major structures, those for North Dakota that are 10 feet longer, are put in through the state, through the NBI, and Minnesota has the same deal. Actually, the counties put it in though, but they put their NBI structure, their major structures in through the NBI program, and we have access to that, so we can show that on our viewers. So you don't have to enter the NBI ones if you don't want to. Some counties have just gone ahead and put them in anyway because they didn't have that many or whatever. But if the county wants them, it will be up to the county to put those into this layer. But to view that NBI data on those major structures, that will be in the viewers to at least see it there anyway.
And Brad, the nice thing about the viewer is that it's live versus the layer here. The county would have to update every 2 years with the DOT's inspection, correct?
Yeah, well, the layer that we get from NBI, we take it from the Federal Highway website where they post. It's a web service, just like we're using with our maps here, where we just point to it. Actually, no, that one isn't a web service. We have to download that. So that just gets updated once a year. Well, we'll go to the Federal Highway site and download that to our server.
And we'll do that automatically for all the counties. Whereas if they put it under the minor structure tab here, the counties will have to remember to update it every time they get an update from the DOT.
Right. So let's just look here as an example. So Trail County has their structures entered in to GRIT, and they're showing up here, but also under bridges, if you click on that layer, you can see there's National Bridge Inventory. I have it turned off by default, but you can turn that on. And when it's not showing up, it means you're not zoomed in close enough to get it to come on. So there I zoomed in a little bit more. And now I'll turn off the GRIT ones and the GRIT surface structure condition. Now these are all NBI structures here, right directly from that federal data. We might update this a little bit to show the bridge efficiency rating as a color code, but the data, when you click on it, it's all there. But this is where I'm saying you don't necessarily have to enter in, all these NBI ones, and that's what Trail did. They just did their minor structures, and then occasionally they did one that was on an NBI. Maybe they had some more priority with that or whatever, but some of these are state N. So the triangle here represents state highways, counties, townships, and cities. So anyway, so yeah, that if you want to enter it, that'll be there. And I'll point out again that all data that you have in the existing GRIT will all be transferred over. You really won't notice anything different other than when you hit that GRIT button again, It's going to open up an application that looks a little different. It'll be this new Grit 2.0, and all your data that you had will all be in there. So you'll be ready to go just to start editing if you want, updating or adding to it. I guess I got about 10 minutes here, and this will shut off. Is there any other last minute questions or thoughts, or any feedback on what do you think the application looks like? I'm hoping it's an improvement for everybody, and it should be even easier to use. So if you got new staff that wants to start entering data, they should be able to just jump right in there and pick it right up.
Looks like some very nice enhancements. I don't see any other Q&A, but there is time. So if you type in any question, answer to the Q&A, we'd love to bounce it off Brad. And then Brad, you started off with anything you dream up. Meg in the IT team are working on them. So you're taking items to add into your prioritization list to think of for future updates. You're taking that through what Andrew, Leanna in the field, and then emails, and there's also a link right on your Grit site to pop in comments. So
Yep.
You're welcoming those, right?
I am, definitely.
You've been, a lot of the comments that we've seen from the field and in our past webinars, you've already implemented into 2.0, so nice job. I'm still not seeing any other questions or comments.
Because our intention now is to, there's maybe just a couple more items to finish up on the program, and then we are going to do that data conversion one last time. So we convert from the existing database into the new one. And it's looking like that's probably going to happen this week, I'm hoping, maybe Friday. There might be some time in there where you cannot get into either one as we make that conversion. But like I said, then when you open that up next, it'll be the new version, and it'll be ready to go. So
Brad, there's a question that came through, and they're asking if you're able to run any reports from the database yet.
From within the Grit tool itself, the editor, we don't have anything set up yet. We have talked about adding a button up here to do some reports, but that honestly isn't an area where I've had any feedback on what kind of a report somebody may want. So we haven't done anything with that yet, but we are open if there's some specific, report that people would like to see as an option, then we'll look at adding that in.
Okay, so
in the viewers, I have it turned off now, but there is a way to get data into a spreadsheet from the viewers. So for a planning layer or a construction layer, you can export the data to a CSV file or a spreadsheet that lets you work with it on your own. Again, downloading data is something that we really don't, we certainly don't promote, and because everything's updated live from the Grid application. So if you download data, then it's no longer connected, it's no longer up to date, and we really don't want to have that data out there. So we still are limiting that capability.
I'm not seeing any other questions.
There is one question here, and it says, what is developed or being developed in an area of snow and ice control may have a bearing on future links to the DOT travel map info? And I think that was something that actually was a little bit discussed, or maybe there was a question or a comment made along those lines at the Association of County Engineers Conference as well.
So within this inventory application, we don't have any plans to put any winter or road condition information in. Part of the issue with that is that requires somebody to be updating it all the time. I mean, it's not like we could put something in there where the maintenance employee would have it and be able to, but it's kind of difficult to do that as you're driving down the road and all that. So you run into all those issues with that. And then if one county does it and the next one doesn't, then we have kind of an incomplete map. So we've shied away from that. And unless we have a different way of doing it, I don't think it'll be a part of this application, but maybe in another application or some other way that you can do it might come up.
Okay. That's all that I have right now, guys.
Okay, and Brad, I'm not seeing anything else either.
I just wanted to quickly, before we logs out on us, is that, like we said, this will be recorded. And so there's a lot of users out there that did not have a chance to attend. And we'll be emailing out the link to that recording. If you get it, any of the people that are on the phone, I'd appreciate it, and we'd appreciate it if you'd forward that to anybody you might have that's using the application or thinking about using it, just so they're not surprised when the application changes the next time they log in. At least they'll have a chance to see what it's about before that happens.
Well, that looks like a wrap, Brad. It's just about 3 o'clock on the hour. Very nice job. Thank you. And thank you for developing this system for the state.
Yep. Thanks, Dale, for hosting, and thanks everybody for attending.